Welcome, readers. Today on Book Chat, joining me is my Buddy Reads co-host, Classy Green. We'll be discussing The Marsh King's Daughter by Karen Dionne. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and thank you for downloading this month's Buddy Read discussion featured here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. If you're new here, every week we get bookish with book discussions, book review shelf bites, and more. If you are wondering what is a buddy read, this is a feature where Classy and I select a thriller or mystery title that we both are interested in. Then we have a candid discussion about that book or audiobook. We even discuss it in our Facebook group Shelf Addiction Official during a live chat. So grab a glass of wine, a cocktail, cup of tea or coffee, or whatever your drink of choice is, and settle in for this fun discussion. As always with book chats, there is a spoiler alert in effect, so you've been warned. Don't miss our movie adaptation fantasy casting toward the end of this discussion. If you enjoyed today's episode, please support this podcast by sharing it with one book nerd friend or on your favorite social media space. That would really help me out, and I appreciate you for doing it. The uncut video version of this podcast is available now on Patreon. Join us there for exclusive videos, including this podcast after show. You can find both Classy and myself on Instagram and Twitter. And if you're reading or listening to this audiobook and would like to contribute to the conversation, of course, be sure to join the Shelf Addiction Official Facebook group. I hope to hear your thoughts on this discussion. The links for everything I've mentioned are below in the show notes. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining. And of course, joining me is the Buddy Reads feature co-host, Classy Green. Welcome back, Classy.
Hey, Tamara, how are you?
I'm doing good in this new world that we're in. Different times, but I'm living it. How about you?
Same here. I am living the dream, as one of my coworkers used to say. I don't know what kind of dream.
Somebody's dream.
Yeah, right? As my one friend said, we are, this sounds like a bad episode of Black Mirror. I think that's what they call it. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, so.
It does seem like that.
Yeah.
But today, hopefully, we are going to take your mind off of all of that. We are going to be discussing the audiobook version of The Marsh King's Daughter, written by Karen Dionne, narrated by Emily Rankin, and it was released June 13th, 2017 by Penguin Audio, and the unabridged audio, which I hope you listened to or read, comes in at 9 hours and 55 minutes. But before we get going, Classy, why don't you go ahead and share the synopsis with us?
Okay. The Marsh King's Daughter by Karen Dionne. The mesmerizing tale of a woman who must risk everything to hunt down the dangerous man who shaped her past and threatens to steal her future, her father. Helena Pelletier has a loving husband, 2 beautiful daughters, and a business that fills her days. But she also has a secret. She is the product of an abduction. Her mother was kidnapped as a teenager by her father and kept in a remote cabin in the marshlands of Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Helena, born 2 years after the abduction, loved her home and nature, and despite her father's sometimes brutal behavior, she loved him too, until she learned precisely how savage he could be. More than 20 years later, she has buried her past so soundly that even her husband doesn't know the truth. But now her father has killed 2 guards, escaped from prison, and disappeared into the marsh. The police began a manhunt, but Helena knows they don't stand a chance, knows that only one person has the skills to find the survivalist the world calls the Marsh King, because only one person was ever trained by him, his daughter.
Okay, I think that is a pretty accurate and non-deceptive description.
I was going to say, I love this description.
Yeah.
It is so on point. And that's, I know I'm going to divert a little bit from the topic, but, when we do the synopsis after we've read the book, we have had a lot of deceptive synopsis. So to read it out loud, it's like, yep, this is a good, it's a good synopsis. It really does tell you what the story is about. So.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so obviously, like I said in the intro, spoiler alert, And yeah, so let's just dive right on in. So I honestly, if you guys are following the podcast, then you know that I did a spoiler-free shelf bite last month, technically. So it's been a minute since I listened to this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it overall, and I have a feeling my partner over there is going to have some things to say. So, Classy, why don't you kick us off since you're the new one to this book?
Okay, so starting off with the book, I enjoyed it. I was drawn in. Karen Dionne, the author, does a beautiful job describing the Upper Peninsula. I have never been there. I have a coworker who has a cabin in the Upper Peninsula. Her family bought land out there. They go can't remember when, but they go every year. My son has been to the Upper Peninsula. His ex-girlfriend used to live there. So to read this book and to hear her describe the nature and the land and how beautiful it was very interesting. But then I kind of got lost with the flashbacks.
Okay.
I don't mind flashbacks,
Mm-hmm.
but it seemed like um, there were too many flashbacks and less character development for me, because I think we start off this. She starts off the story with, I think she starts off at the present time. She says, "Hey, here's my story. My mom was kidnapped. I was born in captivity, but this isn't my mother's story. This is my story." And we kind of start off with, I believe, her in the present time with her husband and her 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we may have and it's been a while too since I finished the book. But my struggle with the book was, once her father escaped prison, that cat and mouse
Mm-hmm.
game for them, it was too short for me. And
Hmm.
I thought this story was going to be more of um, that,
Okay.
the suspense, because reading the synopsis, I was thinking that was going to be the crux of the book, was the cat and mouse
Mm-hmm.
chase of her trying to capture her dad. And the majority of the book was her living in captivity, um, or the flashbacks of her talking about her childhood, how her dad was. And I didn't mind that. That was a good story part. It was good, but that's not what I was expecting from the book.
I'm gonna have to say that while I do agree that the present day story of her, chasing her dad down probably wasn't technically the most of the story, but without the details of the flashbacks, I feel like we lose the importance of how dangerous he is. Like we won't know,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I get that part. I do. And I do get that part, but it was just something about, I don't know. It was just something about, all of a sudden at the end, it was, okay, now I have to chase him down. And I do get the part of how he trained her and how he did, and maybe because, trying to think here, maybe even if she added more of the chase in between the flashbacks, because if you can remember the chase of her getting to the point where she followed him and found him in the cabin, that was very minute compared to the whole story. I don't know how.
Well, okay, so so the father is freed. She figures, okay, I'm gonna have to chase him. The first part was her driving up there, after her husband takes their kids. Of course, she been lying to him their whole relationship. So he
Right,
takes their kids off. She goes up in the woods. She leaves her car, takes her dog, and she does find someone pretty quickly that's dead.
right.
And so then we learn some stuff And then I feel like
we learned a lot of stuff, Tamara.
yeah, but I feel like the author checked in. So she had that first initial thing where she found somebody, and then she found like something else, and she was like, "Oh, he's watching me." She found something else on the trail, and then I think she got to the cabin where he had been, and then so I mean, I feel like she checked in, but I don't know. Could there have been more of that? Possibly. It possibly could have, but I wasn't put off by the flashbacks because I found them entertaining. I found them easy to digest. And I think they moved the story faster than someone just sitting in the woods tracking someone. Because I think that could be boring as well if you have too much of that.
True. But I think maybe my issue was, and maybe it wasn't, the flashback of so much of the flashbacks, but possibly, what would I say here? You know, maybe the description of the land, and which was beautiful, but it was just something to me that was just missing. I really appreciate the flashbacks because without her flashbacks, we didn't know much about him. But there was just something that just, to me, just lagged in between that cat and mouse, that suspense. And I just felt like this wasn't as suspenseful to me. I didn't see the suspense. And I don't really, like I said, I don't really mind flashbacks, but I just thought that there should have been more suspense.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see a whole lot of suspense. She does a great job describing land and the waterfall. And I mean, there were some suspenseful moments, you know, like the moment where she realized, you know, because listeners, as Tamara said, this, well, she had been, Helena had been living a lie for, when was she released, at 12 years old?
Yeah, decades. Decades ago.
Yeah, so, and I think she got married about 2021, and I think she's 28 at the time of this story. And so her husband never knew that she was the Marsh King's daughter. But then the whole time while she was in captivity, her father, who we're not sure if he is Native American or not Native American.
I think he is.
Okay, he is Native American. Okay, I wasn't sure.
Now, see, they didn't outright say that, but because of the stories he was telling and how he would talk about the quote unquote white people, I feel like he was.
Right, and he did speak to her in the native tongue. And that was the thing where I wasn't sure, because everything that he kind of told her was lies all along. So I wasn't sure. But I mean, she didn't realize that they were living in the current century. She was reading old National Geographic magazines, and she believed Jacques Cousteau was still around, and, you know, those different things, which did bring light to the story, and how diabolical and psychopathic her father was. But I just think that the suspense of knowing, like, her mother, her finding her mother's teen magazine, and the snowmobiler, you know, those were a little suspenseful. But I just thought the cat and mouse chase of her and her dad were not that suspenseful. And I think this was considered thriller. Well,
I didn't mark it as thriller on my list. I marked it as suspense. It was not a thriller to me.
Yeah, it wasn't. And it wasn't a mystery.
No, because we know what he did.
Right.
It's more about, it's not about the who, the why, the when. But those whys do come into play. We do learn kind of why he did that, because he thought that's what people did back in the day. You go off and you steal your wife. But what I guess even going back to learning like how or why he captured her mother, it's like, so you're Indian, you kind of don't or Native American, excuse me, you're Native American and you don't like a lot of white people, which I found out from a coworker who grew up north is
Mm-hmm.
how they treat the white people up there. They don't like them. They don't
Okay.
like, so why would you go find the whitest white girl you can find? I mean, couldn't you? And even Helena said if he were to take her daughter, one of her daughters, she knew who he would pick. He would pick the one that looks more like him with brown skin,
Mm-hmm.
brown or tan skin.
Right.
So I don't understand exactly how he picked her mother. Maybe she
Right.
was just convenient and he's like, F it, I'll just grab her. I don't know.
Right. I need somebody to help me till the land, and I mean, there was a point in the story where he says, I should have picked the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm not sure either why he chose, and it might have been just a matter of convenience at the point. But other than, like I said, I didn't think it was suspenseful. The story, it did grab me, and when I started listening to this book, I often do this sometimes. I try and think about how this author has done the story different compared to maybe another story we read, which was The Chill, and they did all this stuff about the dam, the historic. But then here we have Karen Dionne, who does all this about the Upper Peninsula and the Marsh, and she did it wonderfully. I meant to text you and say, now this is how you kind of give it to us, and and it was very important for us to know, because this is, how they lived. They lived off
Yeah.
the land. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have the luxuries of anything. Like I said earlier, she thought they were living, I'm not sure what time would that be.
I feel like it was like the 50s or 40s or something.
Right,
She
like
thought,
Jacques Cousteau, and yeah,
yeah.
it was very. They had not seen any other people, except for, she saw the young people at the waterfall,
Mm-hmm.
but he made sure that they didn't see anyone else, and he was a strict. I wouldn't even call him a disciplinarian. He was
Abusive.
to
But
say the least.
but to go back to like the descriptions and stuff, in this case, it was important to the story
Yes.
because not only yes, it's visually, sounds visually appealing, but we legit needed to understand how it's possible that she could go all these years and not be found. We
Yeah.
needed to understand how they lived, how she has the abilities to track him, and that all of that stuff couldn't have been explained properly without understanding what the wilderness is, how far things are away from each other, the quiet, you know what I mean? All of those things actually matter to the story versus, oh, let me just tell you how a dam works. So to me it was kind of night and day, and this is the, like you said, the proper way, because it was actually a component of explaining how she was raised, how she got to be the person that she is today, a product of that environment. And apparently that's real. I mean, we saw, there's a video, guys, I might link it if I remember in the show notes. The author explains how she used to live up north.
Right. She
So
said her and her family.
yeah, so she had a lot of that knowledge firsthand. I guess she said someone had told her she had clearly a much better, I guess, understanding of how things up north work beyond Wikipedia. she's
And
yeah,
you could tell, and
yeah,
you
you
can
could
tell in
tell.
her writing. You can definitely tell. I totally felt like she was, that this person, it almost made you feel like, is this a true story? Even though I know it was a work of fiction, she did a great job. So,
Let me
and
tell
I
you,
do understand that we had to get her flashbacks to get um, a great understanding of how Helena was able um, to know what her dad would do. She did. She knew all his tricks. She knew how he would fake death. The marks on the grass. Every little thing, because he played the game with her. He even played the game of, you shoot me, are you going to shoot me or not? It was intense for a
she
young
was his
child.
little shadow, he called her.
That's right. He sure
So
did.
she was always with him, always learning from him the entire time, to the point where I think I had mentioned before that at times I had to remember that when we're learning some of this stuff, Helena is a child.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the times she treated her mother really badly. Like, you're bratty, you're awful little child.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, most kids have a favorite parent. Let's not lie. Let's keep it real.
Yeah.
Most kids will take sides against their parents when they're young like that, and they don't know any better.
Right.
And it's like, I had to remind myself, she's telling this story, but she was a child at the time and she was acting so crazy.
Yeah. Because there was a point where when she said she didn't understand why her mother never ran away, and but she didn't know her mom's story. All she knew was, this woman, all she does is just sit around here and cook and clean. She didn't know that her mother was kidnapped. And
Mm-hmm.
even if she did at that age, even when the snowmobiler tried to tell her, what happened, she still didn't grasp that, again, because it's the mind of a child. My father would never do anything like that. And you do. Some children gravitate to the parent that they have the most in common. And Jacob made sure
Mm-hmm.
that she was his little shadow, because, now he has someone that he can mold
Mm-hmm.
to what he wanted. So, now that we say this, maybe he didn't care about picking the whitest of white women. Maybe all he did want was his a child, his legacy, so he can start his life on the land and create a person to be what he wanted them to be. So he didn't care. He just needed somebody to make a baby with.
Which was crazy, because it seemed like when she did get pregnant, like, maybe he wasn't too happy about that, because then he had to go and find clothes, right?
Yeah, see, he didn't think about all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think he just thought, hey, we're just going to have a baby. Oh, yeah.
Like, you're growing. You can't fit these clothes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We have to, and it's crazy to me to think that the mother had an opportunity to get away, but she was too scared to take it. She felt invisible, which is crazy.
Yeah. But, and again, you never know what he told her before they got to the store.
Mm-hmm.
And I think someone said, and I can't remember in the video, but I think people were trying to say that Helena had Stockholm syndrome, and it really wasn't Stockholm, or was it the mom? Helena definitely didn't have Stockholm syndrome. That's all she knew.
I think some people could interpret that as Stockholm syndrome as she got older, because when she describes her past, it's like she has a fondness for it. It's like she can't hate her father all the way, but she hates him. It's like that thin line between love and hate, because
that's what kids do. I mean, that's their parent.
Yeah.
So she doesn't know any different, but
I think her mother was just beat down because he was constantly abusive to her.
Yeah.
Raping her, beating her. He was very abusive. And you see that one scene where, Helena was busy doing something and the mother was like, oh, fine. She didn't want to go get whatever it was. What was it? Flowers or berries? It was berries. She didn't want to go get the berries. She's like, fine, I'll go get the berries. So she goes to get the berries, and the guy, Jacob thinks she's trying to make a run for it.
Right. So
beats the shit out of her, drags her back. And Helena's like, I don't understand what happened. Like, what did she do? Yeah, he tried to. Yeah. Yes. And she's like, I think that was the very first time in her entire childhood, she started to question Like, what just happened? Like, why did that happen?
Right. I told Mom that there's this great, basically, she was like, "Mom, it's this great place over here across the marsh that has the best berries. You should go get them." And that's what happened. And she, like you said, Helena's like, she's going to get us some good berries. What's going on?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a lot, but
It was.
it was a lot. And at first I thought I was going to struggle with, those triggers, but I didn't. I didn't struggle. I think Karen did a great job describing, the torture, the abuse, and it's hard to say like tactfully or whatever, but as an adult who has suffered some type of abuse, I handled it. It wasn't horrible. But just to know that this woman was kidnapped and kept not that far from her home.
Yeah.
And it's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it with, I think she mentions in the story, J.C. Dugard and Samantha Smart and all these women. So, yeah.
And I mean, I think that the UP is like the best place for this kind of scenario because things are so far and in between, and you had to be in the wilderness. How could you not be caught for that long, especially when the woman started screaming, going in labor, having a kid? You need to know one to be around.
Right.
Yeah. So that made it believable.
Yes. Right. Very remote.
Yeah.
Now, was this cabin that was out in the UP, was this his family's cabin, or was this something that he found and and I can't remember, because I know, like, when Helena grows up, the house that she's in currently in the present time was her dad's parents' home.
Yeah, it's the home he grew up in. Well, it's the land that he grew up on because she took the house down.
Right. So, yeah,
I think that he found the cabin because I think there was a part where she kind of talked about people abandoning cabins up here.
Okay.
And whatnot. So I think he just took it as his own and built up things, to live. Yeah, it was crazy. But I gotta say that that alone makes me not want to visit the UP because, and I live in Michigan, y'all, but I have no intention of going up there because someone could yank your ass off the street and no one would know it. So there's that.
Yeah. I know when you read these type of books, you're like, I read another book about a woman who went on a cruise and never came back. They basically pushed her off the edge of the ledge, and you learned about all the technicalities with different countries, because now even though you're a U.S. citizen or whatever, when you're over in that land, in that water, you have to deal with those, so you read these stories and you're like, I'm good. I don't think I want to camp. I don't want to hike.
Not for me. I mean, because even Helena says, she knew he was trying to go through the woods to Canada. Like, you could just stroll up across the Canadian border because there is nothing going on.
Nope. And nobody would know.
No. And I mean, if you end up being killed up there, it would probably be decades and decades before someone came across your body, if they did at all.
Yeah.
So, pass.
That's a hard pass for me, ma'am.
Yeah. And I feel like I learned that from this book, and I believe it. I honestly believe that is how something like this could happen. Let me just stay my little suburban / urban self down here where there are cameras in every parking lot. Can't ring cameras on people's doors. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, even in the story, I believe Helena mentions some classmates who had cabins that they would abandon, and she would purposely go in there, break in, and let them know, hey, I've been in your cabin, because they would mess with her, would give her a hard time. Because this girl had tattoos. Her father tattooed her.
Like old school
on her face.
Man, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So she would just break into cabins and just kind of like camp out just to let the her classmates know I could do this.
Man, I'm surprised she never tried to get some of those tattoos removed.
Yeah.
Instead, she told these wild and out stories to like kind of explain how she has these tattoos.
Yeah.
When
I think
actually,
they were on her face, right?
yeah, on her face.
Yeah. Not
Yes.
just her arm, they were on her face.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think she told her husband it was a mission trip, right? And her parents died or something. So, yeah.
Which
But other
is
than that,
nuts.
it was pretty believable. The story was very believable. I will um give you that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there was just so many things happening, but like we literally followed her from the youngest age to like a preteen to what happened after she was released. We got to meet her parents, who were not the best people.
God, those were
Her mother's parents, I should say.
her maternal grandparents. Yeah, they were a piece of work, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course we hear how she just grows up lying. It's easier to lie than tell the truth. I might as well change my last name, change this, change that. I'll just
Yeah.
make up a life instead of explain what really happened.
Right. And I think that probably was the best for her because she struggled being Helena, whatever her dad's last name was. She had a hard time
Mm-hmm.
dealing with, at first she thought she wanted to be around all these people. And then she realized, nah, I think I'm okay. I
Yeah, she
think,
could see them lying and she could tell things were not right.
yeah.
I mean, even she wasn't that right. I mean, when her mother finally had a little man, do you remember that scene?
Oh,
The mom's in the
gosh.
shower and she sneaks in to that bedroom and she like threatens that dude. He grabs his stuff and runs out of there.
Yes. She basically was like, I will cut that little Peter off.
I will cut you. I will cut you.
Mama come out the shower and like,
What happened? Right. He's gone. And I'm like,
sorry.
see, again, that was like, I'm thinking, why are you so selfish, little girl? And I'm like, you're a child. You don't understand.
No. Even though she said, I knew my dad and mom were making noises in there, but I think all she thought of was, and maybe she thought, here's another man who could possibly hurt my mom like my dad did. You know, I'm
I don't
just,
know, because you see how she reacted, like when the guy came, the snow skier guy, the
right. John.
John, she instantly thought, oh, my mom's trying to cheat on my daddy. Like, are you
Yeah.
serious, little girl? Are you serious right now? This is what we're doing? Like,
Yeah,
this is,
because mom hugged him.
oh God forbid she hugged somebody. And it looked like she was hugging him because she was so grateful to see someone else.
Right.
Like, you're oblivious, child, oblivious.
Yeah.
To the point where you had to make up imaginary friends to help you understand what was going on.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your subconscious kind of knew what was going on, but you had to talk yourself into it. Like, even after the man was pretty much on his deathbed, he told her how to use the ski thing.
Right.
Whatever it's called, the snowmobile.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that was a lot of directions for her to remember how the thing worked. But he's like, look here, you don't know about your dad. Let me tell you, everything that's going on. And she just needed somebody to talk her into it. And her little imaginary friends did that.
Yeah.
If she didn't make those people up, she might still be there.
I can't remember the girl's name. Yeah. Cousteau and I can't remember, but yeah, she did. And I think it's because in her mind, all she was hearing was Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do this, or, without those voices, or you say her subconscious, she wasn't going to be able to do it. And now that we think about, now that we're talking in this story, the author weaves in, is it the Grimm fairy tale of the Marsh King's daughter? Is it that?
I don't know if it's grim or not, but it is a fairy tale.
Yeah, she weaves the Marsh King's daughter in with this story, which I had never heard of The Marsh King's Daughter. So I enjoyed that too, and again, this is why I love reading, because I learned something. And although I didn't enjoy the suspense that much in this book, I did enjoy the things I learned about the story, about, I laughed at the times where she said her dad kept saying, give your mom the yarrow tea, but she was giving the man the chicory tea, which I meant to look up to see what was the difference, because it was supposed to, I think the yarrow tea was supposed to stop the bleeding, but it didn't. It was just so much that I did learn from this book. So that was a plus. There's always something great when I can learn something that I haven't known about before in a book, and it was enjoyable. It didn't seem like a horrible history lesson like the dam story from our last book about the dams.
I mean, honestly, I really overall, definitely wasn't a perfect book, but overall I had like really minimal issues with it. And it really led to a interesting conversation that I had with my workbook club. My workbook club read this book too. And I don't think anybody said they didn't like it. And this is definitely something different that I have not read in any time recently. The fact that you're going to not only kind of, it's just different. I can't even explain. I have not read something like this in a long time, where it's kind of like a kidnapping story wrapped with a little bit of suspense. It's very chilling the way the child was treated and the mother was treated. Like that kind of stuff kind of was like, ooh, it's kind of cringy, but yet still entertaining and still digestible.
And I agree. Like I had mentioned earlier, that she did a very good job of making the cringe moments, I hate to call it, like less cringeful. It was like you knew that this was wrong, but she didn't make that the horror factor of abuse. I mean, you knew it, but she didn't make it distasteful. Maybe that might be the best word. Because I mean, granted, I saw your eyes. Abuse is wrong, period. But I think, that some people can just be so graphic with it that it just, and I think that might have been why she decided not to make it, the tone of it, so big, because of the type of story she was writing. He threw his daughter down the well as a form of punishment, with broken dishes. So, and a well is only so big, so she would have to, and at one point when she was younger, she could crawl up into a ball and avoid them. But when she got bigger, she couldn't. But yeah, not to say that abuse is not cringeworthy, but I believe the author did a great job of describing this and not making us like want to stop reading the book. Is that a better way to say it?
For example, like obviously we know the mother was raped on a regular basis, but she didn't have to tell us what happened during those moments, because we as adults know what the hell that means. Okay. Right. So she didn't have to get graphic with that. I think some of the most graphic things were like that one scene we were talking about earlier, where she almost drowned her mother for getting berries. That was pretty graphic. Yeah. When the guy on the snowmobile got beat up, that was pretty graphic. Yeah. Because he basically murdered that guy. Yeah. And
it was just slow.
Yeah, it was a slow death, and Helena just put him out of his misery. Like what 12-year-old realizes, I gotta kill this, I just gotta shoot him because he's like a dying dog. You can't help him.
And what her father was going to do was going to be way worse. Yeah.
Oh, he was gonna probably like do all kind of maiming, horrible things to him once he realized that they got away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't fluffy, but I mean, it wasn't too soft by any means, I feel like, but it was digestible.
Yes. Agreed, ma'am. Agreed.
Yeah. So, and definitely entertaining. I felt like this is one of the more movies that could translate to the screen very well.
I think I read that it may.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know when, but I was looking up, I think when I was trying to find something with when I was trying to look up the names of the characters because I had totally forgot, I came across that this may be a movie, and the woman who played Lara Croft may be the actress that will be Helena. So
As an adult, clearly.
yeah, yep, as an adult. So
Uh-huh.
that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm. And I
Yeah.
think I will watch it. I would totally watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to know with the stuff going on, the movie. I feel like to do it right. Let's keep it real. It needs an R rating. It needs an R rating, and don't soften it too much,
No,
or it's
don't.
not going to be right.
No, please don't Disney this.
Yeah.
Please don't Lifetime this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
No, give it what it deserves.
It's
Yeah,
a
like
dark
you said,
story.
it's a dark tale, and we
Yeah.
as adults can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, because I can't imagine having to kill my own father, even if I hated him. But which made it ironically really infuriating for me to read that last little bit because I'm like, you know him, you know his tricks. Why are you giving him the benefit of a doubt? You are dumb, girl. You about to get got. And she did get got.
Yep.
I'm like, that's not my daddy, and I know you about to get got.
And this was my thing. We just heard the flashback
Right.
of what he did,
Mm-hmm.
Little Shadow,
Right.
and you still fell for it.
Yep.
My thought was with this, you knew if he got away what he was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And as a mother, I'd be damned if you get my child.
Yeah.
So
You're
it's
not getting near
you
them.
or my child.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Daddy.
Yeah. You got to
Sorry.
go. And that
Yeah.
was it. Because
Yeah.
she had to do something really hard and fling herself down like a hill, like a really steep hill.
Yeah. And then pretend like she was dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is you fight every bone in your body, fights yourself from hurting yourself to mentally prepare yourself to just let yourself ragdoll down this steep hill.
Right.
It's got to be something that it takes an immense amount of mental strength to do that.
And not only that, like he had already shot her in the shoulder. Am I right? Prior to her falling down the not falling, throwing herself over the cliff, basically. I mean, it's not a cliff, but down a hill.
Yeah.
So she had an injured shoulder, and now you're rolling down rocks, basically. Yes. So no, I'm sorry, Daddy. You're gone.
Yeah, and I think at the end there, I didn't re-listen to the end. I should have. But I feel like right there, I think she wanted to give him a try again. I feel like she wanted to give him one more shot.
Yeah.
And she's like, no.
Yeah. But you know what? I did like that part because that just shows the love of a child. Mm-hmm. Regardless, it's like a child is so resilient that they want. And even though she was an adult, it took her back to just maybe there's some good in him. And then she saw him for what he really was. So I did like that because she didn't sugarcoat it. She was, she showed us that this is what possibly not everybody would think. Mm-hmm. Not me, especially not my babies. I'm Mama Bear.
I mean, my God. I mean, okay. She wanted him so bad to just say, okay, you won. You won. You got me. You can take
You're
me.
right. You're right. That's what she wanted.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that's what she wanted was just that verification, that approval of him. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't like that. I mean, if you think about it, he never let her win I think even when he never let her win anything, she had to fight for everything. When they were hunting, when they were playing games, he never let her win. Where, like I know with my dad, when we play checkers or chess or dominoes or spades, every once in a while you let him win.
Yeah.
Not Jacob.
Nope.
It was a cruel world out there, and Jacob, he was the cruelest.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
It was crazy because, like, I can even understand maybe the first time, but fool me once, dude. There's no way I'm gonna give you a second time to take me out. No.
Yeah.
We're done. Any feelings that I might have had for you are gone the minute you shot me in the shoulder.
Not just that, and then you hurt my dog.
Yeah,
dude.
You know how she feel about her dog. Like, even when she escaped as a child, he killed her dog. Like,
yeah.
why you gotta kill the dog?
Girl, when he killed the dog, I almost text you. I was like, he killed the dog. I'm done. Yeah, and then you hurt Rambo. Rambo was already had surgery. I think he was like a 3-legged dog or something, and you have no love for anybody. You are just
ruthless,
heartless.
Yeah, heartless too.
Yeah.
I'm like,
so here you want to take my baby, you hurt my dog, and you shot me, your daughter. Yeah. So you don't give a damn about anybody.
No.
But I'm giving you a second chance. That's a kid, though. When you think about it, children who are in abusive relationships, or I won't say relationships, children who are abused still give the abuser
another chance.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. But then even in that moment, I feel like she was talking to her little invisible friends again. So I'm like, okay, so you're an adult now. You're a full-on adult with invisible friends.
Because you know what? It sounds like she still struggled with, long as Jacob wasn't around, I think she could make those good decisions. I mean, when you think about it, when he wasn't around and she was doing her business, and when she was with Steven, she was fine. So I think when Jacob came, she reverted back to being that little girl again.
And again,
I think that was the only way she was able to get through it.
Yeah, because again, it's like she knows in her mind, she already knows what's what, but she needs someone to talk her into it or to make her see reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's why Karen did it this way, the author, that she just lets us know that even though as adults, sometimes we think we can make these strong decisions, but there's something sometimes in our childhood that will make us revert back to that child, or just those decisions or in those situations. And I won't say everyone, but I'm thinking with this girl being an abused person. I mean, if you think about it, even like when we read stories sometimes about abused women, a lot of times women who have been in abusive relationships find themselves again in another abusive relationship, because sometimes that's all they know.
Yeah. It's like repeating the same thing. It's cycle. Like, yeah, like it's hard to get out of it.
Yeah. And I think as long as Jacob was in jail, she was good. She was strong. She had her own business. She tore down the house. She built all this. And all of a sudden, here she is back on the Marsh as Helena, whatever their last name was, in the cabin. So, the more I'm talking about this, the more I'm enjoying this damn story.
Look, I told you it was good. Sorry, I told I told you.
Like, flirting your face with my mouse. Damn you, Tamara.
I told you it was good. I'm just saying. I mean, it's a lot going on in this story, and I do give Karen Dionne lots of props on how she put it together. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't easy to throw all these different things together, and then to throw like a fairy tale like on top of it to kind of explain things.
I will agree with that. That was a lot. And she did a really good job with throwing that at the beginning of the story. Is kind of laying the foundation basically of kind of what was about to happen. So yeah, she did. She weaved a lot into this story.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything else you think we should cover about like the plot or the characters? Because I know at first you kind of didn't think there was any character development. Do you still feel that way? Because I don't think there would have been any with the father. A villain is a villain. He's the villain.
Yeah, and the more we talked about it, his development was pretty much via flashback, via the little things he did to the mom, to Helena, to John the snowmobiler. Yeah. So, okay, she did good with character development. Suspense, yeah. With character development, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good story.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess this is a good time to take a quick break. When we return, we are going to talk about the audiobook narrator, give our rating, and of course, last but not least, we are going to do a fantasy casting for this book. We didn't do one last month, so I'm kind of excited to do one this month. Stay with us. Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite bookish item. All right, we are going to now talk about the audiobook narrator, and it was narrated by Emily Rankin. And I feel like her name is very familiar to me. I'm about to look her up real fast. I feel like she's very familiar.
Yeah, I think I've read some things by her, or listened, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
To some stories by her.
Oh, yeah. She did Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. That was another book club read that I did like last year. Oh, yeah. She did Sapphire Flames by Alona Andrews, the Hidden Legacy books that we were doing on the Three Bloggers One series. Read along.
You are familiar.
I am. I knew I heard her before. She did Diamond Fire. Yes. Oh, she actually did Providence by Caroline Kepnes as well. She's done quite a few things that I've listened to. I'm like, I knew I've heard her voice
sounded
before.
Familiar, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She has a really great voice, and I think she probably should get a few more props than what she's, she should probably be a little more well-known, I think, than what she is. Everything, I can't find any complaints with the narration. How about you?
She did a great job. I had no complaints at all with her voice. Male voices were done well. Female voices were done well. She set the tone. I mean, you could tell emotions when she narrated. So I enjoyed her.
Yeah, I think she did really excellently when talking for Helena as the main, she is the protagonist. She's narrating her story as an adult and as a child.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I believe that she was a child during the child parts. I wasn't confused. Right. What's happening?
Right. You knew, with the flashbacks, you knew we were talking about Helena as a little girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yay. Wonderful. So definitely, I love when the audiobook narrator definitely elevates the story even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice and easy. I love when that happens and we don't have to complain about the narrator.
Right, because this is what we're doing here. We're doing audiobooks, right? And she did. She did a great job. I have no complaints at all. And I think I even read this at a higher speed, probably one of the higher speeds I've done before, like 1.6, 1.7.
Ooh, I never listened that fast.
I think it was maybe 1.6. And that was because I had to finish something else. I think it was 1.6. Mm-hmm. And she still sounded good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, well, let's rate the thing. Let's rate The Marsh King's Daughter before we do our fantasy cast. Classy, I will let you go first.
Okay, so originally I was going to give it a 3 because I was like, I liked it. It was okay. But after chatting with you, Tamara, about this book, I would I would say I have up to my star to a 4. Because I believe she did a great job. Karen did a great job. I learned a lot of things. She did a great job telling the story. Like I said, the suspense. I wanted more suspense. Maybe that was my problem. I wanted more suspense, and the story wasn't going that way.
Yeah.
But other than that, what I wanted and what she did with the book, I'll go back to what she did with the book, is a 4.
Mm-hmm.
She did a great job.
All righty. Woohoo. I concur with the 4. That is what I gave it on the Shelf Bite, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah, I really liked it. Like I said, it was really easy to get through. It was entertaining. It was fast paced for me. I think I read it or listened to it rather in like a day and a half or something crazy. It didn't take me long at all. Okay. I devoured it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to find out how she kills him or what she, if she catches him, how she catches him, how, long it's going to take her to catch him and what happens when she catches him, right. And all that. So I enjoyed myself. I liked the narrator. I liked, almost everything about it. I really can't complain too much. It just wasn't perfect. There were some things that I just can't say this book is for everyone. This is definitely not. But there's an audience for it. And if you can handle the trigger warnings, the abuse that we mentioned, kidnapping, things that are going, he's abusive toward women and children and men, everybody. Mm-hmm. If you can stand that stuff and it doesn't bother you too bad, go for it. Check it out. Definitely.
Right.
All right. So we're going to do our fantasy cast and let's just jump into it because we have not even that many characters, but because of how so this is my thought process behind how I ended up with 2 actors for Jacob, 2 actresses for Helena, 1 for the mother and 1 for Stephen. I thought we should give Stephen a nod. He's the husband. He is in the present. But because this story went between the past and the present, I felt like we couldn't have just one version of them because we got just as much of them in the past, if not more, than in the present.
Right.
So that's what we did. So we have, so let's start with Helena, the main character, our protagonist. I'll let you go first, Classy. Who did you pick for the child version of Helena?
I picked Selena Gomez because I was just trying, and granted, we could do makeup and we can do hair, and I was trying to go for darker, and that's who I picked, Selena.
Okay. I kind of went with the same theme for Helena. I wanted her to definitely be more warm tones, darker features, because, and I tried to visualize somebody that I would see on screen with a bunch of tattoos on their face. And it would be okay for me to see, and I wouldn't be like, oh God, what happened to them? Okay. So the young version of Helena, I picked Joey King. Okay. And she's really a child star. She's done a lot of things like Crazy Stupid Love, Ramona and Bezoos. I don't know. I've seen her on other stuff, Independence Day, Stargirl, and I'm like, I just like how she looks, and I think she could do it, and she fits my vision. So let's go with adult version of Helena. Who did you go with?
I went with Gal Gadot. Who was our Wonder Woman. Was it last year or year before? So I just saw her as being strong. I felt like she could be, I could see her in the Marsh, or I don't know if it was the Marsh now, in the present, but, the cat and mouse scenes with her dad, suit with her. I don't know. Did she have a gun? Gun, knives, whatever she had. I could just see her doing that.
Cool. I like your pick.
Yeah.
I went with Anya Chalotra. I don't ask me. I mess up names all day, every day. So sorry. But I know you don't recognize that name. And I know anyone that listening probably doesn't recognize that name. But you do know her. If you've at all watched The Witcher, which was...
Yep.
She was, what's her face on The Witcher? She was the witch on The Witcher.
Yep.
And instantly you know who she is.
Yeah.
What was the character's name? I can't remember. Her name was Yennefer. That's right. Yennefer.
Okay.
On The Witcher.
Yep.
And she's been in some other stuff too, but that's what I recognize her for. And I picked her because I've seen her. I think we both picked women who do action that look good, welding guns, possibly knives. After seeing her performance in that, I do believe she could be hunting in the woods.
Yeah, I agree.
Fighting with an old man. I can see it.
Yep, I agree. We have good picks for Helena in the future. Present.
Yep. Yeah. So let's move on to awful Daddy Jacob. For the past version of Jacob, if I remember correctly, he was definitely older than her mother. He was not young stealing this kid off the street.
No.
He was an adult, full-grown adult.
Right.
So for him, the younger version of him, who did you pick?
I picked Adam Beach. And, I'm trying to think. I know he was in a Netflix movie with Alfred Woodard. I can't remember the name of that, but he also starred in, I know this is older, Texas Walker Ranger with Chuck Norris. He is an Aboriginal, I think he's from Canada too. So I think he is Native American. He has that dark look. He has a sinister look to him. And I think he has played some roles where he was kind of, the mean guy or a bad role. So that's why I picked Adam. And I think he is a Native American.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Cool. I like your pick. I have seen him in some stuff. I just don't remember what.
Right. I think he was probably like the main character or main actor.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so for my younger version of Jacob, I picked Benjamin Bratt, and he is also Native American, I believe. And I picked him because I've seen him play a lot of nasty people.
Yeah, he is very versatile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see him being a hot mess, torturing people, kidnapping people. I see it all. I can see him doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Okay, so let's go with the old man version of Jacob. I guess 20 years later or however many years have passed. I don't even know exactly. But so he's now running amok as an old guy. Who did you pick?
I picked Lou Diamond Phillips, who, again, like you said with your character, Benjamin, I've seen Lou play all roles. I think he is a good character actor. He's done the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mm-hmm. That's why I picked Lou.
Okay. I do think that is a good pick. So for my version, I picked Graham Greene. He is also a Canadian actor who is also Native American. And he has been in some things that we would know, like Old School, Dances with Wolves. Yeah. He hasn't been anything too recent. He was in The Shack in 2017. You'll see him throughout like the 90s and the early 2000s and stuff. He's been in a bunch of stuff. And I know you probably might not know his name or some of these names, guys. So just go over to shelfaddiction.com and you'll see the photos of these actors and actresses. So don't forget that. If you're like, who are they talking about? I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Just click on over and you can see that. Next up is we had to find an actress for Helena's mother. And I gotta say, while I understand the story is not focused on the mother, she was a big part of that story. So it kind of like that kind of bothered me a little bit that she didn't have a name. I feel like she deserved a name. But
yeah, because I even tried to like go back and think like when John came, the snowmobiler, I don't even think he mentioned her name, because I think like when Helena came in, they were kind of whispering and she didn't hear anything. But they, they said, hey, we went to school together, blah, blah, blah. But I don't remember the mom having a name.
Me neither.
Yeah.
So they're the mother.
Yes. The mother.
Yes. So the past version. And I know we did get to see her kind of post, that event, but I figured the time after that didn't matter as much. So we just went with the younger version. So who did you pick, Classy?
I picked Chloe Grace Moretz. And I know I believe she stars in, is it Good Girls? Bad Girls? No. Tinket. What is the name?
She's been in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I know she starred in Kick-Ass a long time ago as, the young girl who was one of the superheroes or something like that. She starred in, let's see here. I'm trying to look at her IMDb. But I thought she was in Good Girls or Bad Girls. Maybe she wasn't that one. The Miseducation of Cameron Post, which I had no idea is. But yeah, she starred in a few things. And I just seen her. She was probably one of my first picks because I think they mentioned when the father picked her up that she was a chubby kind of girl, and I just saw her face as being a little rounder. And I know she slimmed up a little bit after the baby and probably not eating as well. But I just saw her too as being somebody I could see, I don't know, as the kidnapped mom. And then when she was rescued, kind of dealing with a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah, she was damaged in a big way.
Yeah.
She needed to be right up in there in that therapy office every damn day.
Yeah, she really
for the next year, like, to be honest.
Yeah. I think her parents kind of kept her locked up.
Oh, yeah, they did. Yeah. They wanted to take advantage.
Yeah.
So when I thought of that character kind of being mistreated by not only Jacob, but by her own parents, and I don't know, I visualized Elle Fanning. Yeah, she's a very skinny girl, but I do feel like I could believe that she would be sneaking a kid food in a well. Yeah. I could see her being yanked. She could play young enough to see the younger, a couple years younger, being yanked up out the parking lot or wherever she got yanked from.
Right.
And I can see her playing a little older, being somebody, being a little promiscuous, being a little rude, just because.
Like, I haven't had any in a long time.
Yes.
Let me go find
somebody.
Sneaking them in the room.
Yes. So if you don't know her, I think the most recent thing that I saw her in that was very good, that came out on Netflix earlier this year, was All the Bright Places. That's another book adaptation. It was really good.
Haven't heard that one.
Yeah, it was good. Although I didn't read the book. Right. All the Bright Places.
Okay. Well, that's Dakota's sister, right?
Yeah, Dakota's Fanning. Yeah, that's her sister. Okay. And she's been in like Maleficent. She was in that, and a couple. I mean, she has a really long list of things on her list, and she's only in real life like 23 or something.
Wow.
Yeah, she's done a lot. So I like her. I like her for it. And then the last person, Steven, he doesn't have a whole lot of screen time, but I think some of the moments with him are pivotal. Like in the beginning, when we find out he didn't know who his wife was really. And then in the middle, when we kind of see their kind of dating situation.
Right.
And where he decides to go home, but he's like, look, chick, these are my terms, basically. Mm-hmm. So we had to pick someone. Yes. So we had to pick someone for him. Who did you pick?
I picked Liam Hemsworth, and I probably should have picked Miley Cyrus, but I just okay.
Don't put them together. Oh God.
Right. No. Well, you know what? I picked him because I kind of had Miley in my mind, like, all these years you've been lying to me, and you know, I could see him where he would be like a little upset but understanding, but in the meantime, let's get the kids and move them to my mom's house. And like you said, these are my terms. I also felt like, you know, he has a little warm quality to him where, because he was a little romantic when they first met, and she was this harsh girl who was like, you know, she was a little standoffish and understandably so, and he warmed to her. So that's why I picked Liam.
She was a little weird. She was a little awkward.
Yeah, she was. You know, here's this girl with these tattoos on her face sitting at the fair selling jellies.
But even like not knowing like certain social cues, she would say every once in a while, it would kind of slip through where she would do something weird or say something odd.
Yeah.
And he kind of just was like, it's fine.
Yeah, girl. Yeah.
So for that character, I actually picked James Marsden. I just think he can be a super like sweet person, but not a pushover. Yeah. As far as the character is concerned.
And I think like when I saw him, I don't know, the last movie I think I saw him, he was like quirky. But I do see your pick though.
And he's good to look at, so give me some eye candy.
He's not bad looking.
Yeah, he's not bad. Yeah. So that's who I picked, and you guys know who he is. And if you don't, shame on you. Just watch any of the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
He was also in, what else? I don't know, a bunch of stuff. Oh, yeah, he was Teddy in Westworld. Did you guys watch Westworld? He died. Teddy's character is gone, but he was in the first 2 seasons of Westworld. Now I gave you guys some point of reference. So, and that's the end of our short casting. I mean, I didn't figure it was that important to cast so many of the minor characters.
Yeah, they were so minor in this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we picked anyone out of the pictures we picked, Stevens, I mean, granted he was pivotal, especially with the daughters and everything, but there weren't too many minor characters to be honest. I mean, okay,
grandparents
and classmates maybe, right?
Yeah, classmates, grandparents, what was that person, the news anchor that kind of talked to her a little bit.
Right. And the officer that kept picking her up when she would commit her little crimes.
Yes, her little felonies of breaking and entering.
Yes.
But yeah, it was mostly about her and her daddy, really. So those were the main 2 characters, we think. So yeah. Wow. So we have reached the end. That is that. Is there anything else you want to add before we end the podcast?
No. Nope, I don't have anything else.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Thanks for listening this month. We appreciate you for being here, and we will be back next month. We don't know the book yet, but join the Facebook group, and then you'll know right away what the next book is. You don't have to wait. You can be prepared and read or listen along, and then we can all talk about it here on the podcast. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining, and we will catch you next month. Take care, guys. Bye. If you enjoyed today's book chat episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. You can follow me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. Most importantly, you can share this podcast with friends and family that enjoy all things bookish, including author interviews. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.